Hello and welcome. I'm Helen Atkinson, Senior Editor at Supply Chain Brain. I'm excited to be moderating this webinar today, sponsored by Locus Robotics and Logiwa, the topic for which is Automated Warehouses Win, Staying Competitive Through Technology. As e-commerce trends continue to grow and supply chains become increasingly complex, competitive warehouse operations are upgrading their fulfillment technology to include multiple forms of automation. In order to maintain flawless end-to-end order fulfillment, process digitization, robotics, and hybrid workforce strategies have become operators' #1 priority. Welcome to the new age of warehousing. Today, we're going to learn about understanding the importance of automation as part of a holistic approach to warehouse labor, process, and technology, automation and warehouse digitalization options, and how to create a hybrid workforce where workers are comfortable leveraging robotics and other automation technologies and understand the value of implementing them. First, we're going to have a panel session with 4 fantastic panelists. Then we're going to move to a Q&A session with questions from you, the audience. Please submit questions at any time using the tab at the bottom of your screen. We will not be using people's titles or company names, so you should go ahead and ask anything you like. If you don't see your question answered during the webinar, please be assured we will reach out to you offline. Right, let's get to our panelists. Jason Lum is Strategic Account Manager at Locus Robotics. Jason has over 20 years of experience implementing software and hardware solutions within warehouse, distribution, and manufacturing facilities for global brands. Jamie Bobka is Director of Product Operations and Analytics at Logiwa WMS. From forklift operator and order picker to certified PMP project manager, PMI, ACP, Agile certified practitioner, pragmatic marketing product manager, CSPO certified Scrum professional, Jamie is a proud fulfillment and warehouse logistics veteran. What an incredible breadth of experience there. We'll be tapping into that for sure. Kerry Isansi is head of first-party logistics at Stored, where she heads up the network of Stored's first-party warehouse facilities across the US. With nearly 2 decades at Amazon and T-Force Logistics, formerly Dynamex, Kerry has a zest for supply chains. And finally, we have Kyle Koberger. He is president and co-founder of Badger Logistics Group, Inc., a dedicated B2B and B2C fulfillment center located in Harvard, Illinois. What began in 2018 as a fulfillment center focused on dog treats has become a fast-growing 3PL serving both B2B and B2C clients out of their advanced warehouse facilities. So as you see, we have a very broad and deep range of knowledge on offer from these panelists, including real hands-on experience. So I think this is going to be really interesting. Right, without further ado, we're going to get into a panel discussion with these 4 experts to dig deeper into how automating warehouse operations helps companies stay competitive. So to begin with, I'd like to ask all of you, could you give us some background on you as a company? I know we've talked a little bit about that, but where are you located? What does the company do? And what sort of challenges do you deal with every day? Let's start with Badger.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. Badger started in 2018 as mainly a B2B fulfillment facility. One of our partners had interest in a dog treat manufacturing company, so we started with a lot of their mutual clients. Over the years, those clients have expressed need for the D2C fulfillment as well. And our current WMS, has many options, has made it possible for us to entertain that and then grow our D2C volumes.
So, Kerry, tell us a bit about Stored. That's quite a new company, isn't it?
Not terribly new. So Stored was founded actually in 2015. And so Stored really started as a software company, really the cloud supply chain. And we've continued to evolve, right? So Stored really is seeking to solve, right, one connected software platform. And then we've added in the physical nature of supply chain and solving essentially your port to porch for everything from freight to fulfillment resources. So here at Stored, we're based in Atlanta. We have nodes all across the country, whether it's our first party logistics, which is stored, owned, and operated buildings, to our partner networks everywhere across the US and Canada.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jamie, tell us a little bit about Logiwa.
Sure. So Logiwa, we're a leader in the high volume D2C fulfillment WMS space. As an organization, we've been implementing WMS for decades. We launched our own WMS platform back in 2018. Our mission is to optimize warehouse operations through cloud-enabled and mobile-friendly technology, along with out-of-the-box connectivity to hundreds of e-commerce sites, shippers, and of course, robotics and other various AMR platforms. We're headquartered in downtown Chicago. That's where I am as well. We're on the 44th floor of the Sears Tower, but we have employees all around the US and abroad. For me personally, I lead our product operations and analytics team out of the Chicago office. We're focused on ensuring that our operational, commercial, and delivery teams are properly equipped and enabled to handle customer use cases and communicate how our platform can be leveraged to solve customer challenges, as well as to collect, feedback from customers in the marketplace and understand kind of the trends that are driving where we're going.
That's great, Jamie. Thank you. It sounds like you're really at the coalface of implementation. Jason, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about Locus.
Locus Robotics, we're based in Boston, Massachusetts. We've been around for years. I've been with Locus for about 4 years now. The wonderful thing about Locus is that we drive warehouse automation when it comes down to how can we be a change agent within the operation. We change the paradigm of process picking, put away, case movement, pallet movement. So I like to feel that Locus Robotics is the end all for all warehouse robotics, AMR robotics. So our team is a bunch of warehouse guys that rolled into robotics. So our understanding of, and working closely with Jamie and team, it really is a synergies between our two worlds.
Fantastic. That's great. So you've got people with really grassroots experience who've then developed this excellence in robotics. That sounds
absolutely, Helen. Absolutely.
Fantastic. So I'm particularly interested. I want to focus on this sort of day-to-day stuff. And Carrie and Kyle, I'd like to ask you, what specific challenges have your teams faced in recent years? Carrie, let's start with you.
I think, as an operations leader, speaking specifically in, my role here at Stored, one of the biggest things, over the last couple of years, when you think about the COVID pandemic, is really labor challenges and the labor shortage in the marketplace. People, and how do you keep your team safe? And labor itself is not a commodity, right? You can't replace human beings. And I think that has become like a big challenge in thinking through, how do you continue to scale and grow your workforce and scale and grow for your clients? And, the D2C and e-commerce business continues to grow rapidly. As people more and more have realized, oh, wow, this is amazing. I can get more time with my family as I order online and I just do pick up or have it delivered. And,
Sure.
Exactly. And then when you add in that people want it even faster, it puts an even bigger strain on companies like Badger and Stored and even Amazon and the Walmarts of the world. So I think labor has become one of the biggest challenges out there.
That's really interesting. Kyle, what's your take on that? What are some of your biggest challenges? Are they all about labor or are there other areas?
No, Carrie brings up a great point. Labor is, one of the number one concerns and biggest challenges in the, past recent years. But for us, being the co-founder of Badger and starting mainly as a B2B facility and converting that to a D2C powerhouse as well, we were really looking for a technology and a WMS that was able to manage both business types. We experimented with some other WMSs and IMS softwares, inventory management software. We would see some are great for the B2B fulfillment and then some are better for a D2C. But, we landed on one that really were able to accommodate both in, high volumes of each of those fulfillment types. And then one of the challenges is the customers that you work with. Every customer wants to do something a little bit different. So one of those challenges was finding a software technology where we're able to create a customized platform for, to handle their numerous channels.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like we're definitely in the age where people want choices and they want it how they want it, when they want it. And that's not just consumers, although that's kind of what's driving it. Thank you. So I'd like to ask each of you if you could tell us a little bit about your company's approaches to warehouse technology and advancements, because obviously it's a big step. Perhaps we could start with Kerry. How did you get into this? What was your approach to fight, towards automation, warehouse automation?
When Stord was approaching warehouse automation and adding it, right, I think the key to think about here is that warehouse automation isn't meant to replace associates, right? It's really there to supplement associates and take away the unskilled parts of the day, right? Eliminate walking steps and tack time. And so for us, we like to think of ourselves as, robot and agnostic out there in the world. And so it's being open to scale and to try different things that we think may work for us, and looking at different, companies that allow us to try new things that enables us to, work, as Kyle said, with different clients with very different needs. When you house multiple clients in a warehouse, not everybody wants the exact same thing, right? We're not putting out the same box a million times, right? Every client has something very different, and the robotics and the automation needs to be able to match that. And so, for us, that was the biggest approach, was looking at different types of automation and software that allowed us to mold and to be able to be very versatile and very agile in that space.
Interesting. So was there a degree of sort of trial and error at first, would you say, Kerry?
I would say there's a degree of that now, and there was always a degree of that in the beginning.
Sure. Wonderful. So, Kyle, what about you? What was your approach to starting off with automation?
Yeah, automation in the WMS technology. I mean, the point is pretty simple. We try to make every process as efficient as possible. The introduction of robotics, though, is allowing us just to take it to that next level and, make everything more efficient. Pickers can remain, in the racks, in the picking bins. They're picking constantly. You're not losing that waste of travel time from the picking bins taking to a pack station. Really, our ultimate goal is being as efficient as possible, and then just increasing that, that volume without, maybe increasing the labor costs.
Interesting. So your point of focus was efficiency and just really going after that. That's really fascinating. So, Jason at Locus, what would you, as the provider of these technologies, what is your experience? How do most people get going on this? What's their approach?
When we start working with, Kyle and Kerry and the teams out there, our goal is to figure out what is the problems? How do we handle it? How do we increase the pick productivity? How do we drive that? And a lot of it's back to the theory of let's change the paradigm. Helen, I'm an old guy out there, and I've been walking warehouses for the last 30 years, and it's been basically the same. I got a cart, I push the cart, I picture the cart, and I walk my 15 miles. How do I change all that? How do I make that different? And Kyle's right. How do I keep the guys in the pick aisles? Let's take the walk out. Let's make let's do all the inefficiencies and how we drive the process flow. And that's what Locus really does. They make a collaboration between human and robots incredibly smooth. Kerry's right. We're not replacing people. What we're doing is we're making them more efficient.
Right. You're giving them efficiency superpowers, really. Right.
We have super associates out there.
Super associates, fantastic. Jamie, can you tell us what you've seen in terms of people's approaches to?
Sure. Yeah, our philosophy for product development has always been around scalability, connectivity, and time to value. But that does not mean how can I produce the same amount of output with lesser resources, right? It's how do I increase and scale operations over time. A big part of that is leveraging any technologies that can help you either increase your efficiency through, let's say robotics and throughput, or maybe just analytics to, determine where your pinch points are and where you can be more efficient. For us as a technology platform, that generally means, playing nicely with other technologies in the sandbox, being a part of that ecosystem, right? Not trying to carve out and solve every challenge, work well with specialized partners. So for us, that connectivity piece really is what helps us move, our implementation timelines down from months to weeks, and to really enable any, growth from our customers.
Right. And I think that is a very important point. The whole challenge of scaling. I know especially after over the last 2 years, we've seen different companies having wildly different experiences of the pandemic and the fluctuations in demand and the growth of e-commerce. And some companies have had to scale up extremely quickly. So I think it's really important to make that point that that a lot of the advantages of automation are that you can scale quickly, and because you've got all these efficiencies. That's fantastic. So I want to drill into that a little bit and talk about what prompts the introduction of automation, because, I think if everything's running smoothly, there's maybe not enough of an incentive. And the last couple of years have seen a great deal of shakeup in the industry, particularly in B2C, but also I think B2B. Kerry, could you talk a little bit about what prompted the decision to introduce robotics specifically into your operations, and what sort of evaluation criteria did you use in order to make decisions about how to specifically to go about automation?
Right. So when you think about automation, at the end of the day, it's really two things. One, as Kyle says, it's about efficiency, right? It's about getting your buildings to run as efficient as possible. And then on the other side, it's also looking at your labor and engagement, right? Robotics are not meant, like as the team says, they're not meant to replace people. They're meant to supplement your associates. You want your associates to do the hard things, the skilled labor, and you need the robotics and the mechanisms and out there to take away the steps and things of that nature. So when you're scaling and you're looking at adding robotics to the building, for us, what we really wanted to look at is like that cost benefit analysis. When you look to add robotics into your building and you look at, you're looking at using them, they're the most efficient where you might have slower moving product. And so you're walking, there's longer walk times, longer tack times in between products in your building, where the robots can do all of that walking, right? Instead, I almost call it zone picking, right? Instead, you can stage 1 or 2 associates there that they can take care of that. And so that's the piece. And that's really what you look at is, at what point do you start, does the robot take place and really, one, the benefit of the associate that they're not walking miles upon miles of every day, but 2, yes, it does take away perhaps a head count. It's going to, reduce a head count need, but also with the labor market where it is today, that's also beneficial for us. And 2, the robots move faster, they're more efficient, they can find the zones that they need to get to quicker. And so for us, that's what we really looked at is how, where's that break even point, and then where the benefit comes to where we can add robotics. If you're in like fast moving, product that's really just pallet pick that, one piece movers case after case, robotics really isn't probably the right thing to add. But when you're looking at slower mover, tier B, C, D product, that's where you really want to look into adding robotics. And we certainly had a need for that here at Stored.
Right. So you definitely identified a need for taking some of those inefficiencies out. I see that. Kyle, was there a specific moment when you knew that you would have to, that robotics was a good option for you, for your facility?
Well, we're really at the stage before getting fully integrated with the robotics, but I know that's our next step to move to. And it's nice to know, or great to know, that we're working with the technology and WMS team that is, working with Locus to make that happen.
Great. Thank you. Jason, where are you seeing people's pain points? What kind of, what drives people to call you up and ask for your help? What do you think are the most common causes?
So everyone said this, and it's true. COVID pushed e-com up by 5 years easy.
Yeah.
And the growth potential of the growth for many of my customers are sitting back at increase it to a second shift? How do I go to the weekend? How do I drive better SLAs for my products to get out there? And I kind of blame my wife on this because she is the one that wants the product today. She wants it tomorrow. So it's that attitude toward life where these e-com companies, they need to ship and ship fast. So all of a sudden my biggest customer is saying, I need to get this product out. I need to drive shipping, and I need to grow at the same time. How do I do that? And that's why most companies call us because of the growth, the speed, and how we change the facility around. Right.
Wow. So a lot happening all at once.
No, it's crazy.
Yeah. We see a lot of that in the industry. So, Kyle, your team is driving operational efficiency by utilizing WMS technology, as you mentioned, to optimize end-to-end processes and to support the growth of a new revenue center, particularly B2C. Can you tell us how Logiwa software is helping you do this in a little bit more detail?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say the biggest success point is just the level of configurability that the WMS software offers. For example, all direct-to-consumer orders are scanned. We have it set up where it's scanned from the pick bins, and then again at the pack station going into the shipping box. You're able to, configure each client differently based on their needs and challenges. If you have a client that has, a lot of single unit orders, you may scan it once out of the pick bin, and then, just pack it out at the packing station. It's just the vast number of integrations has really helped us. Batch picking, cluster picking. They have all these different algorithms that work for a specific client, and just schedule job creations. So we don't have to wait on if our warehouse manager is running late. We don't have to wait on them to get in and assign jobs. We have that all scheduled so our pickers can come in and they can get right to work. Another thing that's really helped us is the visibility of real-time data through the cloud-based technology. It eliminates a lot of the customer service inquiries that we as a 3PL used to have to answer to our clients. Given that clients have a client portal, they're able to see the same data, a lot of the same data that we see, in our internal system.
That's right. I know nobody wants more customer service queries, right? So it's fantastic if you can reduce those. That's really great. Jamie, could you tell us a little bit about how Logiwa helps reduce incoming customer queries and some of the other things that Kyle talked about?
Sure. One of the things Kyle had touched on there is a really a point I want to highlight, and just the unique requirements of different clients that you're serving and the number of clients that warehouses are now being forced to serve with their own unique use cases, their own unique requirements. Like that ability to separate and differentiate, create differentiated workflows for each of those is extremely important. You can't use a one-size-fits-all model. You're going to have multiple streams. And leveraging technology to manage those so you can eliminate any human decision-making in what is an automated and should be standardized process really lets you stay focused on, solving any of like the true critical issues that are going on. And then in turn that, results in, higher satisfaction rates, less questions that are coming down, less problems that are coming their way. And so, folks can stay focused on efficiency versus, having to change processes ad hoc and, implement, new strategies as they're going. So simplifying and automating all of the simple decisions is, to me, a really key takeaway. And it's more and more, you're just having more and more of those streams.
So that's really interesting. So you're almost talking about what might be called micro standardization. So you've got all these different custom requirements, but you're able to make a solid process for each one of those. And I'm assuming what sort of involvement is there by your customer's IT department, or is it something that can be done sort of intuitively? What's the level of expertise needed to build these processes?
Yeah, I mean, if for us, it's as simple as a couple button clicks in most cases, right? We've got some tools that are focused on those small to medium levels of complexity where you click a few buttons and say, if this happens, then that. If an order comes in with this attribute, do this. So we've got some simple tools for that grouping, but we can even go as far as to complex, bespoke algorithms for grouping and packaging of tasks and jobs to be processed. So we try to cover that entire spectrum of cases, and that's becoming more and more just a need. That's not a niche feature that's offered to just a small corner of the market. That's everyone. And so having a solution that can do all of those things is just becoming more and more important.
That's really interesting. Jamie, maybe you could go on a little bit and tell us how you integrate with Locus bots at Stored. And do you see what you're doing? Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about how that's working and if you're seeing other companies adopt that kind of robotics usage.
Yeah, of course. And I think certainly that I know there's a couple comments about this earlier, but just to reiterate the point, like that cost ceiling, that barrier to entry, the ease of implementation of robotic solutions, like as that continues to come down, more and more organizations are finding that not only are these just highly viable options, but most likely within the next few years, this is going to become a just true necessity to stay competitive, to be leveraging systems like this. From an implementation perspective, for us, it's getting increasingly simple to deploy a solution like Locus in nearly any location without disruptions to workflows or layouts, things like that. In the past, there's from our customers at least, we've heard some fears of I've got a really complex flow, or maybe my layout is not set up or ideally to leverage a bot like this, but that's quickly vanishing. So from our side, we're really focused on just being highly configurable with tasks and how workflows can be deployed. So our tasks engine and the Locus control systems, these stay in lockstep, and they play very nicely with each other. We learned this very, very early on, even with really complex environments. So like one example I like to point out for this, one of the challenges we handle is like with shorted or missing inventory in a picking operation. A picker using a Locus bot may go to a location, find that there's a short, missing inventory, et cetera, inform and report through the Locus bot that this isn't here. That Locus bot is going to communicate back to Logwell on the fly and say, like, there's a discrepancy here. We're going to log that, make some changes. We're going to immediately recalibrate, find another location. We're going to send that back to Locus. Locus is going to bring that right back to the picker, and they're going to keep going. They're not going to have to stop. They don't have to get a supervisor. They don't have to walk back over to a location. They can keep moving. And that level of communication, that complex communication of between the bot and the WMS platform, really is what we're going for, right? It's not a complex or year-long project to create a system that works that way. These are systems that work almost out of the box. So, and that's a lot of what we're trying to do with Stored and many of our other customers, of like to enable that just simple, like high-tech use case without the months of support and building to enable it.
Wow! So you just really so it's not that hard or time consuming to get the bots deeply integrated into the WMS functions in very useful ways, like when something isn't in a pick station.
Exactly.
Thank you. So Jason, your team recommended Lojua to Stored after your robots had been deployed. And I'm curious about that. Usually WMS comes first and then the bots. So what was the reasoning behind that?
So it was a great conversation we had with the Stored team, and it was a breakdown of what they were looking for, the objectives. What were their pieces and parts? And all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're looking to go live fast. We would like to find something that was 6 weeks, 7 weeks. We need something that had a lot of e-com integration. And I don't think anyone does it better than Lojua of 200 plus. It's really kind of, and it was kind of funny, Helen. One of my customers purchased the whole Lojua system down in Dallas, and I'm not sure if they could have danced any happier when they got done. And it was a nice behind it, how everything got brought in together, how everything, when Joe said, Jason, this is the greatest software in the world. And then I got a call from Stored, and everything they said, it fell into place. It really fell into place. It was a wonderful kind of a process that we worked with on.
Fantastic. Wow. Thank you very much. That's a really positive story. So again, a question for Carrie. What sorts of results have your teams realized from your technology implementations? And do you have any particular statistics or KPIs that allow you to compare your operations before you started the digitalization process?
Well, we're still working through the Lojua implementations here at Stored, and thank you to the team at Lojua for all that they're doing as we work through. But, with bots, what they really do is they give about a 30% lift on the pick pack function, the pick, because what you're really doing, as Kyle said, it's about efficiency, right? When you take out, when you use the bots effectively, when you place them in areas where they're eliminating steps, it's a huge win. And so for right now, for us, we see some really nice gains with bot pick over, what we call manual pick in the areas where we're using the bots currently.
Wow. And Kyle, what would you say? How does your before and after look, and how are you measuring it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Carrie's able to speak a little bit more to the bot aspect. I'm able to speak a little bit more to the WMS aspect. So since we've come on with Lojua, there's been very little to no misships, with the D2C volumes, with everything being scanned. Transaction history is user specific and timestamped. So if we do have a misship, we can trace it back. We can visit with that employee, find out the root cause of, the issue. One very powerful piece, if we have clients that are shipping D2C orders that are going out in multiple packages, there's a report called the Shipment Report All, where we're actually able to see exactly what product was, in that box one with like shipping label A, and then everything that was in box B was shipping label B. So, we have all the tools and all the data that we need to trace this.
Fantastic. And I know, Carrie was saying she's got a 30% lift in picking efficiency. Kyle, are you, it just sounds like you're generally happy and know that everything is more efficient. I was just curious if there were any specific KPIs that you use to measure that.
Nothing very specific. A lot of our stuff was just kind of word of mouth. Prior to that, we were working in IMS, which is an inventory management system. It had some scanning, but not, everything. And then we were splitting that with a different software that was able to do the shipping aspect of it. So you're looking at two softwares before that you're working with, for different procedures. This is an all-in-one program. So just taking away that time of having to work with two different systems and being able to do everything in one, that was a huge win right there.
That's fantastic. And I think that's a really good answer, because I know certainly as a journalist working in this space, a lot of companies get a little too hung up on the KPI thing and measuring efficiencies, but it sounds like a transformation is a transformation, which is great. So if I could stay with you for a moment, Kyle, how did you manage the rollout of diverse technologies? And, as you said, you took two systems, put them into one. And how did your associates respond to the more sort of digitalized environment, the greater deployment of technology? Did they welcome it? Were they nervous at first? How did that go?
Yeah, the whole onboarding process is extremely smooth with Lojua. We were able to continue in our previous softwares while, upper management, myself, we would do the onboarding training, which was very intuitive. The system's intuitive, as a whole. So we would, migrate one customer at a time, then we bring over another customer, and then, we'd slowly introduce it and roll it out to our team on the floor. And everything's extremely easy to use. One aspect that we really liked about Lojua versus some of the other softwares we've used is the older softwares required the big Motorola scanners. There's so much more flexibility with Lojua. We're able to use iPads and Android tablets along with Bluetooth scanners. So just the whole cost aspect too was, pleasing and something, that we're looking for.
Wow, that's fantastic. And people like using iPads rather than big, clumsy scanners, I think. Kerry, what about you? What was the reaction from associates at Stored when you started introducing these technologies?
Associates are always nervous about change, right? They get into a job and they're very used to their memory muscle. And so when you introduce change, there's always that element of nerves with associates. But on the other hand, they get excited when they see new technology and us moving forward and the industry moving forward. So there's always that element of excitement. And the majority of them are excited to learn. It does take, a few moments to learn and to make sure they understand the systems and, and that they're, feel comfortable with asking questions to the leadership team. But outside of that, they're mostly pretty pumped, like Kyle said, using, whether it's, finger scanners and the iPads or interacting with the Locus bots or other robotics that, we could potentially implement. So in general, associates are pretty excited about any type of new robotics or automation that we bring in.
That's great. Excellent. Okay, thank you to all of you. I think we're going to move into the Q&A session now because we've got a ton of questions coming in from the audience. I just want to remind the audience, please submit your questions using the tab at the bottom of your screen, and we will not be using people's titles or company names, so you should feel free to ask anything you like. And if you don't see your question answered during the webinar, please be assured we will reach out to you offline. We'll make sure that all questions do get answered. So I've got the first one I want to start with is the inevitable one, and this is for Jamie and Kyle. How does the WMS cater to returns? How does that work? Maybe Jamie could start.
Yeah, I can go first. I mean, so there's a lot of different things to unpack there on the return side. I mean, obviously it's depending on how your operations are set up and what your business rules are around it. But so I'll keep this general, and then I don't know, Kyle, if you want to chime in, and then I can wrap it up. But I'll say that there's generally two types of flows we see. Either you're a very simplified version of a return. You're just logging this almost the same as like a receipt order, or just like small units of inventory. Logging any reasons of defects, like why was it returned? Is there missing pieces from the original order that went through? And then we've seen some cases where folks are integrating with something a little bit more robust, maybe like like some other return software that handles more of the financial and commercial side, and those types of things. So I don't know, Kyle, if you had any experience or anything you wanted to jump in on that, but I can unpack more of that too if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. Our clients have used more like the simple method that you mentioned first. It's mainly our D2C orders that are going out. So we've configured our client pack slips to have the order number printed in a scannable barcode on the packing slip. So if we get a return, Lodua has a returns module that a warehouse user can go into. And to start the process, they're just grabbing the pack slip, scanning that, pulls up all the details. You scan each and every item back into inventory, and there's different buttons that you would select, for the return reason, or if it's, resellable. So it's actually quite a good module and has made it pretty easy for our team to accommodate.
That's terrific. So I have a question here. What are the limitations of the robotics side of things? For example, are they able to load picks into bins or staging areas without human intervention? Jason, maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Helen, great question. So the way our process works is that we work very closely with humans. So it's very, very much a human collaboration with our bots. We plan and stage, call them soft zones for the pickers. The pickers still need to grab, touch it into our bins. But the biggest thing is that because some warehouses are not always clean, so we want to make sure that we have the eyes and hands of the picker to put it in. What we do find is that we take the walk out of the pick. So instead of the average picker, as I said before, Helen, I'm really old. Usually it's a cart-based walk around, and they're walking 12 to 15 miles a day. We want to bring that down by a lot, by 75%. So what happens is that with staged pickers in the zones, and they grab with our UI, our user interface on our bots, they place packages in, they don't follow the bot, and then another robot comes to them and they fulfill that. So all of a sudden I can be 2x more efficient when it comes down to how do we drive the efficiencies in a warehouse.
Super. Yeah, the sort of follow-up question from somebody else was so they're capable of doing put away, for example, and aiding with that.
Think of the entire solution in a warehouse, from picking, put away, case pick, pallet moves. So definitely, if you have the robots there, let's utilize those resources in any way we can do it, and then tie it back into Legiwa. It makes it really smooth.
Great. And then, so the other question on that was that there's a lot of talk about with pick and pack for zone management. And it sounds like this automation makes that work even more efficiently.
Helen, absolutely. When it comes down to zone management, we don't want to have static zones. It's really a soft zone and how you process your people in there. And a lot of times, what we can drive is actually where our next robot is going to be. So a proximity indicator for our robots for those pickers allow them to maneuver in that zone pretty fluidly.
That's really great. And so we have another question here, and she wants to know, what complications have you had when the automation goes down? What steps do you take to fix it, and what do you have to have in place to make sure this doesn't disrupt operations?
Helen, I'm going to throw this one out. You've got very intelligent listeners here, right? Great question. Again, it comes down to mission critical. How do you ensure mission critical processes in the warehouse are maintained? The overall, nobody wants to go back. Most of Carrie said it. The users, the associates love the robots, and they want to stay with the robots. So if you start looking at how we work, our servers have backup to the backup to the backup. Our robots are designed in order to ensure that even if one goes down, you still have enough for the processing in there. Access points are still working. Even if the connection is lost after you drop orders to my system, I'm still functioning. So there's so much more robustness in this. That's even a word, robustness, in the system.
It is now.
That allows for a true control of those mission critical events. We haven't had a down yet. It really works well.
Right. That's super. Carrie, would you mind weighing in here? Because, you're a user. What is your strategy in terms of anticipating downtime or prioritizing functions?
Yeah, we things are going to happen, right? With technology and operations, you always have to assume something might happen. And so, as Jason said, there are many different ways, like I said, if an order is waived and it's to the bots will continue to go. We have resources on site here, that are essentially trained in tier 1 type support to essentially triage on site. And the Locus team is very responsive in terms of helping us out. And then in secondary, even if there is, say, a bug or an error, you can switch back fairly easily to just do manual pick until the bots are back up and operational.
Right. That's great. So really minimizing the disruption there if it occurs. So another question here, and this will be for Jamie more, and perhaps Jason. What is the actual role of the integrator in this digitalization and automation journey? Jamie, perhaps you could start.
Yeah. So a couple perspectives to answer that question from. So number one is, as technologies are getting smarter and smarter and different disparate systems are able to connect with more and more other systems, the role of the integrator is moving a lot more away from, custom writing code and, writing down like user requirements and things like that. And really now is focused on business process and, customer needs. I see the role of an integrator shifting more towards this consultancy, trying to help understand how this technology can be leveraged, because a lot of that technology piece for integration is already in place. For us with, let's say, with Locus, when we're talking to a customer, we're talking more about how we're going to leverage, both platforms to increase operations. We're not talking about where we're going to host this application or who's going to write this code or who's going to do those things. So I do see that role of the integrator kind of shifting more towards that model from like a to more of a consulting perspective. But in terms of just like, shared responsibilities, one point that Jason brought up there, which in the last question, which I think is also relevant here, is the redundancy between a lot of these systems. We're not completely codependent on one another, where if the core integrator goes down, everything shuts down, right? You've got this beautiful system of passing information back and forth, but each independent system has enough information to continue to operate. And so that role of that integrator to take sole responsibility and one single point of conflict, that's shifting, and more of this kind of a mesh network of various technologies that are going. And I don't know, Jason, if you wanted to comment on that as well, but go ahead.
Jamie, I agree with you 100%. The integrator before was, hey, let's bring these pieces together and that's it. But Jamie's right, it's becoming more of a consulting type of operation. When we sit down with the Logiwa team, they understand the business flow, what Carrie's doing, what Kyle's doing, and then they make us stronger. So having that integration, having that consulting arm in there really is the next step in understanding a better process. We can get in there and understand a X. Jamie's team brings X plus Y.
Fantastic. That's a great way to put it. So now I've got a slightly technical question, but I'm interested in this myself. So how important is floor service, aisle width, lighting, pillars, obstructions? Is that something that often requires a lot of effort to figure out? Jason, maybe.
That is, again, a great question. When it comes to the flooring and the design, our robots are pretty robust, and we can get around a lot of issues inside a warehouse. We look at every facility differently. So, depending on how the columns are spaced, what the aisle widths are. Can I work in narrow aisles? Definitely. Can I work in wide aisles? Better. The wider the aisles, the better the return on investment, because my bots have the agility to go down, bi-directional going through. So that's huge for us. But can I still go down narrow aisles? I've got a lot of customers still working on 42-inch aisles. So there's a lot of things that we look at and we take into the aspect of the design of the warehouse, because not only do we take the walk out of the pick, it's also the robot mission. We want to reduce the robot mission in order to help drive efficiencies up.
Great. And Carrie, again, back to you with your practical experience. Was it necessary to rejig things in the warehouse, or have cleaner floors, or what sort of experience did you have there?
I mean, clean floors is just a great practice of
sure.
a good operational practice.
I don't want to cast aspersions on your warehouse hygiene.
No, I mean, you want to keep clean floors anyways, just for slip, trip, and fall hazards for anybody. But like as Jason said, with Locus Robotics, the wider the aisles, of course, the more the robotics can move through, right? But even then, they can operate in smaller spaces. I don't think we've done anything specific for the robotics at all. They can move in and out and around. They operate some smaller aisles, some larger aisles. Like you said, that they'll be more efficient the wider it is. But on the other hand, right, we still have to operate and run our business the way that it is. The idea is that they work with our business and they don't dictate how the business operates, right? They supplement us.
Yes, right. Well, it's not the tail that wags the dog.
Correct.
Indeed. Fantastic. Thank you. So I have another question here, sort of taking us outside of the warehouse space. There's a question here about last mile delivery. What are your thoughts about last mile delivery if a company wants to do that in-house? Is this sort of marriage of automation and digitalization something that makes it easier for a company to take care of that rather than handing it off to UPS, FedEx, or whoever? Jason, maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah, so last mile delivery has always been It's been out there. Depending on if the process of cross-docking comes in, it's really it's process flow of that last mile. What are we moving? How are we driving it? There's so many open ends on this one, Helen, that it's about the application. So last mile delivery, we would love to attack it. However it is, we would love to figure out how to go about it, depending if we're using pallet movers for consolidation, or if we're going to be using more of a case mover for in that same realm.
Right. Maybe we get the robots to do home deliveries.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Wonderful. Thank you to all. We're running tight on time now, so I'm going to move we have time for just one more question, and I'd like to get input from all of you. And it is this: for other companies looking to digitize the warehouse, where do you suggest they start? And we've touched on this a little bit in our panel discussion, but I would really like to hear from each of you where you think somebody should look to start their digitalization journey. Jason, perhaps you could kick us off.
I'm going to focus on one thing, and that is understanding your challenges. What are your challenges out there? What are the priorities of those challenges? Is it labor? Is it SLA? Is it growth? What are we getting to that point will help focus on what products and what processes that you need to change in there.
Fantastic. Jamie, what's your take on this? Where do you start?
Sure. I'd say, especially those for making that transition into more D2C from B2B, my advice is just remembering that the tools and processes that were designed for pallet moving aren't the same tools that are designed for high volume D2C fulfillment. Just like Jason said, define your goals, document your pain points, and then really take a reevaluation of whatever tools or processes you have in place. Or if you don't have those in place, find ones that fit your ecosystem and also align to your objectives.
Thank you, Jamie. Kyle, where does one start? What's your advice?
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is really hand in hand with Jamie's note there. I mean, find a system that has a good onboarding process, an intuitive system, and then something that you're able to tailor to your client's specific needs.
Wonderful. Cool. And we're back to that whole issue of people wanting different things and being able to be flexible. That's really important. Kerry, why don't you bring up the rear and tell us what your advice is for somebody looking to start on the digitalization journey?
Well, I agree with all of the panelists and everything that they said. So I guess I'd follow up in the final and say, bringing on automation and robotics in different WMS systems, et cetera, is not as costly as it used to be in the past. The robotics, especially in different automation systems, are much, the cost to implement is not nearly as expensive as it used to be. So, go out there, do some research and just dive in and give it a try. Know where your pain points are, as Jason said, know what your customers need, like from a Kyle standpoint, what you're trying to solve, and give it a try. Nothing is going to lock you down or lock you in, trial and error, but you're never going to see the results from something if you don't give it a whirl.
That's great. So take the plunge is your advice. Fantastic. Well, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. Thank you so much to Jason from Locus Robotics, Jamie from Logua, Kerry from Stored, and Kyle from Badger Logistics. And then a special thanks to you, the audience, for participating. Thank you for all those interesting questions. I think we've learned a lot today about warehouse automation and digitalization. We had a lot of questions today, and we'll be answering the ones we didn't get to with you offline. You're also going to get an email later with a link to view the webinar on demand, and you can share that with friends if you want. And there will also be contact information for Locus and Logua, of course. And on your screen right now, you can see, you'll also receive these in the email, but here are a couple of the email addresses if you have follow-up questions. Thank you so much to everyone for participating. Stay safe, stay happy, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.